Welcome to your deep dive. Today, we're going deep into this surveillance capitalism thing.
Oh, yeah.
You guys sent in a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Excerpts from that Shoshana Zuboff book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism,
Right, yeah.
articles, even a patent filing. So,
Wow.
our mission today is to figure out how this whole surveillance capitalism thing works,
Yeah.
what it means for us, and where it might go from here.
It's a huge topic, and it
Yeah.
affects all of us. Every time we go online,
Right.
we'll be exploring how this new economic order is fueled by your digital life
Right.
and what all that means for the future.
Okay, so Zuboff calls it surveillance capitalism, right?
Yeah.
She says all of our experiences online, all that clicking and scrolling,
Yeah.
that's all raw material for companies.
Right.
They're taking that and turning it into data about how we behave.
And it's not just about serving you ads anymore,
Right.
although that's definitely still part of it.
Right.
The goal is much bigger now. It's about predicting and even modifying your behavior to get what they want.
So it's not just they're watching, they're trying to steer us.
Exactly.
How did this even begin? Was this always the plan?
Well, let's go back to the early days of Google.
Okay.
Remember, they were just focused on improving search results?
Yeah.
But then they found that analyzing how users behave
Yeah.
was super valuable for a lot more than just,
Yeah. Right.
finding the best web pages.
Zuboff calls this data behavioral surplus.
Right.
Right? So it's like the exhaust fumes of what we do online.
That's a great way to put it.
Kind of funny to think about how something we just shed, as we go about our day,
Right.
is actually valuable to someone else.
Yeah. Google realized this behavioral surplus was a gold mine
Uh-huh.
for predicting what people would do next.
Okay.
They weren't just serving users anymore.
Right.
They were serving a whole new market, the market for predictions of human behavior.
Wow.
And that became like the core of surveillance capitalism.
Yeah. Hold on. If Google figures this out, don't other companies catch on?
Oh, of
Or
course.
is this just a Google thing?
This logic didn't stay with Google for long.
Okay.
Companies like Facebook
Right.
quickly realized how valuable behavioral data was.
Uh-huh.
And Facebook was relentless in how they collected data.
Yeah.
Every share, every comment,
Oh, yeah.
it all gets fed into the system.
So how did they get away with gathering all this data?
Right.
Were there no rules?
There were rules.
Okay.
But companies like Google and Facebook,
Uh-huh.
they were masters at finding loopholes
Right.
and shaping the legal and political landscape to help themselves.
Wow.
They had this strategy Zuboff calls the dispossession cycle.
Okay.
Think about how many times you've been annoyed by a new privacy policy or a new feature,
Oh, yeah.
but then you just kind of adapted to it over time.
All the time. Like when Facebook started tagging people in photos automatically,
Right.
I was furious at first, but then I just got used to it. Now I don't even notice it.
That's exactly how the dispossession cycle works.
Wow.
It's a multi-stage process.
Okay.
First, they'll take a new data territory.
Mm-hmm.
Then usually there's some pushback,
Right.
but they wait it out. People get used to it. And
Right.
boom,
Okay.
they've got a new stream of data.
By the time regulators catch up,
Exactly.
they've already moved on to the next thing.
They're already on to the next thing.
So it's like that frog in boiling water analogy.
Yeah,
The temperature slowly gets turned up,
that's a great analogy.
and you don't realize you're being cooked till it's too late.
Exactly. And this strategy wasn't limited to just like tweaking existing platforms.
Oh, okay.
It also fueled their expansion into brand new territories.
So it's not just Google and Facebook then.
Right.
What does this look like outside of those companies?
Well, think about the Internet of Things.
Okay.
Remember all those promises about smart homes and smart cities?
Oh, yeah. Like my fridge is going to order groceries for me,
Right.
and my thermostat is going to learn all my preferences.
Exactly.
It all sounded so futuristic.
Well, surveillance capitalism saw this as a huge opportunity.
Oh, okay.
Suddenly, everyday objects
Right.
could become data collection points,
Okay.
feeding even more information into the system.
So my smart speaker isn't just listening for my commands.
Right.
It's also collecting data on my conversations,
Yeah.
my music choices, even my sleep patterns.
That's the reality of it.
Wow.
Every interaction,
Okay.
every purchase, every move you make in the physical world
Yeah.
is becoming a data point feeding this machine.
And it's not just consumer products then.
No, not at all.
What else?
Think about city planning, for example.
Okay.
Smart cities are collecting tons of data about traffic flow, pedestrian movement, even air quality,
Wow.
all in the name of efficiency and optimization.
Well, what's the downside? I mean, if it's making cities run better, is that really so bad?
Well, the question is who controls that data
Mm-hmm.
and how is it used?
Right.
It's one thing to optimize traffic flow. It's another to use that data to predict and potentially control where you go.
Oh, wow.
Zuboff calls this the rise of instrumentarian power.
Instrumentarian power.
Yeah,
That sounds intense.
it is.
Yeah. So what is it?
It's the ability to use digital technology to modify and shape how you behave,
Okay.
to turn you into an instrument for achieving someone else's goals.
So it's like they're turning us into puppets.
In a sense.
Hold on. Wait, are we the product or the puppet?
It's not quite that simple.
Okay.
You are not the product itself.
Right.
You're the target.
Okay.
You generate the raw material, the data,
Right.
but the product is the power to predict and control what you do.
Okay, so this is starting to feel like a horror movie.
It can be a bit unsettling.
All right, let's break this down.
Okay.
How does this instrumentarian power actually work?
It's not always super obvious.
Okay.
Think about things like recommendation algorithms, personalized news feeds, even those little reminders on your phone to stand up and move.
Oh, yeah.
All of these tools can be used to subtly nudge you towards certain behaviors.
So it's not just about showing us ads anymore. It's about shaping what we actually do in the real world.
Exactly.
This is getting scary.
It's a big topic.
We're going to need a whole other deep dive to unpack this.
We definitely will.
But first,
Yeah.
how pervasive has this become?
Well,
It's not just Google and Facebook, right?
right. It's not just the big tech giants.
Okay.
The logic of surveillance capitalism has spread to other sectors too, like
Like?
insurance, retail, healthcare, even finance.
So it's everywhere.
That's the question we're facing.
Like, is there anything that isn't part of this?
It's becoming harder and harder to escape the reach of surveillance capitalism.
Okay, this is feeling overwhelming.
Yeah,
Can we step back and look at this from a bird's eye view?
sure.
How does this whole system actually work?
Zuboff uses this concept of economies of action to explain it.
Okay.
It's all about how the more data these companies collect, the better they can predict and modify your behavior
Okay.
to get their desired outcomes.
Okay, break it down for me. Economies of action.
Yeah.
What are the pieces?
There are three key dimensions to this.
Right?
First, there's the breadth of behavioral surplus.
Okay.
That's the sheer volume and variety of data they're collecting.
Right.
The more parts of your life they can track, the better their predictions.
So it's not just what I'm searching for online. It's also where I go, what I buy, who I talk to.
Exactly.
It's everything.
The more the better.
Then there's the depth of behavioral surplus.
Right.
What's that?
That's about going beyond just what you do
Okay.
and tapping into who you are, like your personality, your emotions, even your subconscious desires.
So they're trying to get inside my head.
In a sense.
Figure out what makes me tick.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is getting creepy.
It can be unsettling.
And then finally, there's the extension of behavioral surplus over time.
Right.
So what does that mean?
That means collecting data, not just about what you're doing now,
Mm-hmm.
but also about your past and future selves.
So they're creating like a timeline of my life.
Yeah.
A digital dossier.
In essence, yes.
And the more complete this picture becomes,
Mm.
the more effectively they can target me.
Exactly.
This is starting to feel less like capitalism
Yeah.
and more like, I don't even know what.
It's definitely a new kind of beast.
Is this even capitalism anymore?
Zuboff argues that it's a distinct economic order,
Okay.
one that breaks with traditional principles of market capitalism.
How so?
It's based on a new logic of accumulation.
Okay.
The more data they gather,
Uh-huh.
the better they can predict and manipulate your behavior.
This is
A
mind-blowing.
huge shift.
But if this is so different, so powerful, how did they get away with it?
It's a complex question.
Didn't anyone notice?
Well, there were a number of factors.
Right.
One was the lack of clear legal and regulatory frameworks for the digital world.
Right.
Like, remember Section 230?
It had something to do with liability for online content?
Right. It was designed to protect online platforms from being sued for what users post.
Okay.
But Google and others used it as a shield to avoid responsibility for the data they were collecting.
So a law that was meant to protect free speech
Yeah.
ended up protecting data collection.
In a way, yes.
Wow.
And this is a pattern we see again and again.
Okay.
Regulations often struggle to keep up with how fast technology is changing.
It's like the Wild West out there.
Yeah, we can feel that way.
Is anyone even trying to rein this in?
There are definitely growing calls for greater regulation and oversight,
Okay.
but it's an uphill battle.
Right.
The tech companies have immense resources and influence,
Right.
and they've been very good at lobbying against regulations.
It's David versus Goliath. But even if we want to fight back, is there any way to avoid this entirely?
That's the million-dollar question.
Like, can I even opt out?
It's becoming really difficult to opt out of the surveillance economy completely.
So I'm trapped. It can feel that way.
What about the good stuff, though?
Yeah,
You mentioned potential benefits in healthcare and scientific research.
it's true. There can be positive applications of data analysis.
Okay.
But under surveillance capitalism, the main goal is profit, not social good.
Right.
So the potential benefits are often overshadowed by this constant chase for money.
So they're dangling these shiny possibilities in front of us,
Yeah.
but it's really all about the bottom line.
Zuboff argues that this idea of solving problems
Right.
is a distraction from the deeper ethical and societal implications of this new economic order.
It's like they're saying, look at all the good we can do.
Right.
But behind the scenes, it's a different story.
Yeah, I can feel that way.
Okay, so this is all very abstract. How does it actually play out in my life?
Well,
What does it feel like to live in a world dominated by surveillance capitalism?
one of the biggest impacts is on your sense of self.
Okay,
You're constantly being watched, analyzed, and potentially manipulated.
it's like living in a panopticon. That's a great comparison.
Yeah.
And that constant surveillance can have a big impact on your behavior.
But isn't this just the price we pay for living in a digital age?
It's a good question.
Haven't we always been tracked and monitored in some way?
Well, while surveillance has always been around,
Yeah.
surveillance capitalism is a whole different ballgame.
Okay.
It's not just about how much data is being collected.
Right.
It's about the quality of the data and how it's used.
So it's not just about knowing where I am or what I buy.
Right.
It's about knowing who I am.
Exactly.
Wow.
They're collecting data about your most intimate thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
Okay.
And they're using that data to try and control what you do.
This is a huge shift.
It is.
I'm starting to see how this is more than just like a small change. It's
Yeah.
a whole new way of life.
It really is.
What can we even do about it?
Well, the first step is awareness.
Okay.
You need to understand how this system works,
Right.
how it's impacting your life,
Yeah.
and what's at stake.
So knowledge is power.
It's definitely a crucial starting point.
Okay.
From there, it's about demanding greater transparency and accountability
Yeah.
from the tech companies
Yeah.
and pushing for stronger privacy laws.
So it's about individual actions,
Right.
but also about pushing for like system-wide change.
Exactly. It's about both.
Okay. That feels a little empowering.
It should.
It's not a hopeless situation then.
Not at all.
Okay.
There's a growing movement of people who are waking up to the dangers of surveillance capitalism.
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
And demanding a better future.
absolutely.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of this problem,
I know what you mean.
but knowing that there are others out there fighting the good fight gives me hope.
Me too.
Okay, so that wraps up part 1 of our deep dive into surveillance capitalism.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground,
We did.
but there's still so much more to explore.
Yeah, we've only just scratched the surface.
In part 2, we'll dig deeper into the specific ways this is impacting your life.
Yeah, and we'll start talking about solutions.
Right. What can we actually do about it?
Sound.
It's great to have hope, but it needs to be hope in action.
Right.
It's not enough to just know about the problem we have to actively challenge the system.
So what can we do about it?
Well,
Where do we even start?
there are concrete steps you can take right now.
Okay, like what?
First, be mindful of the data you're sharing online.
Okay.
I know they're long and boring,
Yeah,
but read the privacy policies. Try to understand what you're agreeing to.
right.
Adjust your privacy settings and be picky about which apps and services you use.
So be a conscious consumer of technology. Don't just click agree without thinking.
Exactly. And support organizations that are fighting for privacy rights and digital justice.
Right.
There is a number of nonprofits and advocacy groups doing incredible work on this.
Like who? Give us some names.
The Electronic Frontier Foundation, or EFF, is a great place to start.
Okay.
They've been on the front lines of the fight for digital rights for decades.
Okay, the EFF. I'll check them out. What else?
Education is key.
Right.
Talk to your friends and family about these issues.
Yeah.
The more people understand how this system works,
Right.
the more likely we are to create meaningful change.
So it's not just about protecting myself, it's about spreading the word.
That's right. This is a collective problem that requires collective action.
Okay, but are we really talking about, like, a threat to democracy here?
It might sound dramatic,
Yeah.
but the truth is, surveillance capitalism undermines democracy in a few ways.
Like,
First, it erodes trust.
Okay.
When you know you're constantly being watched, it's hard to trust institutions, the media, even each other.
So it creates a culture of suspicion and paranoia.
Exactly. Second, it promotes division.
Okay.
Think about those social media algorithms.
Yeah.
They often prioritize content that's designed to outrage or provoke,
Right.
creating echo chambers where people
Man.
are only exposed to information that reinforces what they already believe.
So instead of like fostering dialogue and understanding, that drives us further apart.
That's the danger. It's profitable to keep us divided and angry.
Wow. And finally, you were saying it undermines our capacity for self-governance.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
When we're constantly bombarded with targeted messages and recommendations,
Right.
it becomes harder to think for ourselves and make decisions based on our own values.
It's like we're being nudged and manipulated into certain choices.
Right.
Even political ones.
Exactly. It's about shaping your behavior, not just predicting it.
And this has real-world consequences, right?
Absolutely.
Like what? Give me an example.
Remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal?
Oh, yeah.
They harvested data from millions of Facebook users without their consent
Right.
and used that data to target them with personalized political messages during elections.
Yeah, I remember that a lot of people felt really betrayed by that. But did it actually work?
It's hard to say for certain,
Yeah.
but
Did it actually sway voters?
there's a lot of evidence that suggests it did. Those techniques were really effective at exploiting people's emotions and biases.
Wow.
It's a chilling example of how surveillance capitalism can be weaponized to undermine democracy.
So we're not just talking about targeted advertising anymore. We're
Right.
talking about the potential to manipulate elections,
Right.
to influence public opinion on a massive scale.
Exactly.
This is scary stuff.
It is, and it's only going to get more sophisticated and more pervasive
Right.
as technology advances.
Okay, so what can we do to protect democracy from this?
Well,
It feels like a losing battle.
it's not hopeless. We need to strengthen our democratic institutions,
Okay.
ensure a free and independent press,
Right.
and most importantly, promote civic engagement.
Okay.
People need to understand what's at stake and be actively involved in shaping the digital landscape.
So it's about fighting for a more democratic and equitable world, both online and offline?
Exactly. It's about reclaiming power from the corporations
Right.
and putting it back in the hands of the people.
Okay. I'm feeling a little less doom and gloom now. But I have to ask, is there anything good about all of this?
Well, it's not all bad.
Okay.
Data analysis has the potential to do good, especially in fields like healthcare and scientific research.
So there's hope. Maybe we can find a way to harness this technology for good.
Well, there's always potential for good.
Right.
But the question is who controls the data and how it's used.
Right.
Right now, the interests of corporations are put ahead of the well-being of individuals.
So how do we shift that?
A big question.
It sounds like a huge undertaking.
It is a long road,
Yeah.
but we need to create a new social contract for the digital age,
Okay.
one that establishes clear, ethical, and legal frameworks
Uh-huh.
for data collection, use, and sharing.
So it's about finding a balance between the benefits of data
Right.
and the need to protect our privacy and autonomy.
Exactly. It's about finding a way to use data to improve our lives
Right.
without sacrificing our fundamental rights.
Are there any examples of this kind of ethical data governance in action?
There were some promising initiatives.
Okay, like what?
Some cities are experimenting with new models of data governance
Okay.
that give citizens more control over their personal information.
So giving people a say in how their data is used.
Exactly. Imagine a world where you could choose to share your data
Okay.
for specific things like medical research or traffic optimization,
Hmm.
but you'd still control over other aspects
Hmm.
of your digital life.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we get there?
Well,
It feels like such a huge leap from where we are now.
it's a long road,
Yeah.
but it starts with awareness,
Okay.
with demanding better from our leaders,
You're right.
and holding corporations accountable.
Speaking of holding corporations accountable,
Yeah.
we've been talking a lot about the big guys,
Right.
Google, Facebook,
Yeah.
but you said earlier that surveillance capitalism is spreading.
It is.
What are some other players we should be keeping an eye on?
Well, a company called SafeGraph is a prime example.
Okay, what do?
They collect and sell location data from millions of mobile devices.
So even something as simple as walking down the street
Yeah.
can generate data that's being bought and sold.
That's right.
That's kind of creepy.
It is, and what's even more concerning is that this data is often collected
Yeah.
without users knowing or consenting.
So what can we do about it? Can I even prevent my phone from being tracked like that?
It's becoming harder and harder to avoid all tracking,
Right.
but you can take steps to minimize your digital footprint.
Like what?
Be mindful of the apps you download. Adjust your privacy settings.
Okay.
And consider using privacy-focused tools like VPNs and search engines.
Okay, good to know. But I have to admit, all this talk about surveillance is making me feel kind of paranoid.
I understand.
Is there anything we can do to, like, reclaim our sense of privacy?
Yeah.
Not just in terms of data, but psychologically.
Zuboff talks about this idea of the assault on sanctuary.
Okay.
The idea that surveillance capitalism is eroding not just our external privacy,
Right.
but also our internal sense of self.
So it's like we're losing our sense of inner peace.
It can feel that way.
Like there's no escape from the prying eyes.
That's the concern. It's getting harder and harder to find refuge
Right.
from this constant gaze of what Zuboff calls Big Other,
Right.
this all-seeing force that seems to know everything about us.
That's unsettling. So what can we do to create a sense of sanctuary in our lives?
It is possible,
Okay.
but it takes conscious effort.
Like what?
One important step is to be mindful of how much time you're spending online
Okay.
and how you're using social media.
So take a break from the screen.
Exactly. Set limits on your screen time.
Okay.
Curate your social media feeds to be more positive and less triggering,
Right.
and cultivate healthy offline habits.
So it's about finding a balance.
Right.
Not cutting ourselves off from technology entirely,
Right.
but being more intentional about how we use it.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming your time and attention
Okay.
and using it for things that nourish you both online and offline.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does this tie back to the bigger picture?
Well,
How does creating personal sanctuaries help us fight back against surveillance capitalism?
it's about reclaiming your autonomy.
Okay.
The more you understand your own needs and values,
Right.
the less vulnerable you are to manipulation.
So it's like building up a resistance.
That's a good way to think about it.
The stronger our sense of self, the harder it is for them to control us.
Exactly.
Okay? I like that. Reclaim your time, reclaim your attention, reclaim yourself. That's empowering.
It is. And remember, you're not alone in this.
Right.
There are millions of people around the world
Yeah?
who are fighting for a more humane and ethical digital future.
That's good to hear. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of this problem.
I know.
But knowing that there are others out there fighting the good fight gives me hope.
Hope is essential, but it needs to be paired with action.
Right.
We can't just sit back and wait for someone else to solve this problem.
Right.
It's up to each of us to take a stand and
Ah.
demand a better future.
You mentioned earlier that surveillance capitalism is a threat to democracy.
It is.
Can we dig into that a bit more?
Sure.
How exactly does it undermine democratic institutions?
Well, it works in a few ways.
Sure.
First, think about how political campaigns use data.
Okay.
They use your online activity to target you with personalized political ads,
Right.
often playing on your fears and biases.
So it's like Cambridge Analytica, but even worse.
Essentially, yes, it's about manipulating voters on a massive scale,
Wow.
often without them knowing or consenting.
That's incredibly disturbing. What else? How
Well-
else does it undermine democracy?
But think about the spread of disinformation and propaganda online.
Right.
It thrives in an environment where people are constantly bombarded with information,
Yeah.
and it's hard to tell what's true and what's not.
So it's not just about manipulating individual voters.
Right.
It's about undermining trust in the whole system.
Exactly. It erodes our faith in institutions, in the media, and each other. And that makes it much harder to have a functioning democracy.
This is really bleak. It makes you wonder if democracy can even survive in a world dominated by surveillance capitalism.
That's a question a lot of people are asking right now,
Yeah.
and it's a valid concern, one that we need to take seriously.
So what can we do about it?
Well,
Is it even possible to fight back against this tide of disinformation and manipulation?
it's not easy, but it's not impossible either.
Okay.
We need to strengthen our democratic institutions,
Okay.
protect freedom of the press,
Right.
promote media literacy,
Okay.
and encourage critical thinking.
So it's about education, about equipping people with the tools to tell truth from falsehood.
Exactly.
Good.
It's about empowering individuals to think critically
Right.
and to resist manipulation.
Okay. That gives me some hope. But I have to admit, a lot of this feels overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like it's this huge, powerful system, and I have no control over it.
It's easy to feel powerless,
Yeah.
but that's exactly what they want you to feel.
Who's they?
The surveillance capitalists.
Right.
They want you to think there's no alternative,
Okay.
that there's no point in resisting.
But that's not true. Absolutely not. There is power in collective action. Okay.
There is power in demanding better from our leaders
Right.
and from the companies that have so much control over our lives.
So it's about finding our voice,
Yeah,
about making ourselves heard.
exactly. It's about reclaiming our agency, our autonomy, our right to self-determination. That's a powerful message. It's inspiring.
But where do we go from here?
Well,
What does the future hold for surveillance capitalism?
It's hard to predict the future for sure, but one thing is clear.
what's that?
The battle for the future of the internet,
Okay.
for the future of our privacy and our democracy,
Right.
is happening right now. And the outcome depends on the choices we make today.
So it's a call to action.
Yeah.
We're not just passive observers in this. We have a role to play.
Exactly. The future is not set in stone. It's something we create together.
Okay.
Through our choices, our actions, our demands.
Okay, that's a powerful message. It's both daunting and inspiring. But I'm curious, what about the people who are benefiting from all this?
Yeah.
The tech giants, the advertisers, the data brokers.
Right.
What do they say about all of this?
They often argue they're providing valuable services,
Okay.
that they're making our lives easier, more efficient, more connected.
Right.
And they're not totally wrong.
Right.
Technology has brought us a lot of good things.
So it's a trade-off. Convenience and efficiency in exchange for privacy and autonomy.
That's the core question in this debate.
Yeah.
And it's the question we all have to answer for ourselves.
Right.
But we need to be aware of what this trade-off really costs us.
Okay.
We need to understand what we're giving up when we choose the convenience and efficiency of the digital world.
So it's about making informed choices.
Exactly.
About understanding the implications of what we do.
Right. It's about reclaiming our agency, our right to choose how we live
Right.
and how we interact with technology.
Okay, that makes sense. But I have to admit, it's hard not to feel pessimistic sometimes.
Yeah.
The tech giants are so powerful, the system feels so set in its ways.
I know what you mean.
Is there any hope for real change?
There's always hope, but hope isn't enough.
Right.
We need to take action.
Okay.
We need to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
We need to demand better from our leaders.
Right.
And from the companies that have so much power over our lives.
Yeah.
We need to reclaim our data, reclaim our privacy, and reclaim our humanity.
That's a fight I can get behind.
Like any addiction, the pursuit of certainty can have some pretty bad consequences.
Okay, so how does this play out with surveillance capitalism?
Well, surveillance capitalists, they think that if they gather enough data about us,
Yeah.
they can eliminate uncertainty and just like predict and control how we behave.
Right.
But here's the thing. Human beings aren't data points.
Right.
We're complex, unpredictable creatures
Yeah.
driven by emotions and values and beliefs,
Right.
things you can't really measure.
So you're saying that algorithms will never be able to fully understand the human experience?
Exactly. There will always be some unpredictability, some mystery, some free will.
Okay.
And Zuboff argues that this unpredictability is actually a good thing.
Wait, how is unpredictability a good thing?
I mean,
It sounds kind of chaotic.
it can be chaotic, yeah,
Great.
but it's also what drives our creativity,
Okay.
our innovation, our capacity for change.
Yeah.
It's what makes us human.
So the quest for certainty is actually a quest to dehumanize us,
That's the danger.
to turn us into, like, predictable machines.
Yeah, and it's not just a threat to our individuality.
Right.
It's a threat to democracy, too.
Okay. And I can see that democracy depends on citizens who are able to think for themselves,
Exactly.
to make their own choices,
Right.
to challenge the status quo.
If we become too predictable, too easily manipulated, democracy itself is in trouble.
So what can we do about it? How do we resist this quest for certainty?
Well, it starts with recognizing that uncertainty isn't something to be afraid of, but something to embrace.
Okay.
It's about recognizing the limits of data and algorithms
Yeah.
and acknowledging how important human intuition, creativity, and judgment are.
So it's about finding a balance between data and human intuition.
Exactly. And it's about challenging this idea that certainty is always good.
Okay.
Sometimes a little uncertainty, a little chaos
All right.
is exactly what we need to spark innovation,
Right.
to drive progress,
Hmm?
to make society more vibrant and dynamic.
Okay. I like that. Embrace the chaos. But it's easier said than done, right?
It is.
We're living in a world that's, like, obsessed with data,
Yeah.
with metrics, with predictability.
It's everywhere.
How do we push back against that?
It's a tough fight, but it's worth it.
Okay.
It starts with awareness, with education, with challenging how things are.
Right.
And it's about demanding better from our leaders,
Yeah.
from the companies with so much power,
Right.
and from ourselves.
So it's about reclaiming our agency, our autonomy, our right to be human.
Exactly. It's about remembering that we're not data points.
Right.
We're not algorithms.
Yeah.
We are human beings.
Okay.
And we deserve a future that reflects our values,
Right.
not the demands of surveillance capitalism.
That's a powerful message. Okay, I'm fired up. I'm ready to fight back against the surveillance capitalists, but where do we even start?
There are so many ways to resist